When you look at a map of the city, there's this big blue blank dot in the middle, which is Lake Union. It is kind of an unknown, hidden spot.
The average person sees Lake Union as this beautiful summertime lake to go kayaking on, swimming in. We see it as a portal into history. This doorway that opens up into the historical part of Seattle.
Lake Union is a very special lake. It's gone through a major transformation from being a pristine natural lake to becoming a very industrial center, and now becoming a center for biotech, for major corporations.
This whole area was built and run on maritime commerce, on bringing in the fish, bringing in the timber. That is what started our community here in Seattle, and that's what drove it to what it is now.
Lake Union has been a convenient place for people to get rid of things from the very beginning, and that includes boats.
The bottom of the lake is ships on top of ships in some cases. There's so much stuff down there.
We've got boats on the bottom of Lake Union that span a lot of the history of Seattle. There's military boats, there's cannery tenders, there's pleasure boats. So you've got all different aspects of how people use the water here.
There's many shipyards and boatyards that used to be around the lake, and some of these wrecks may have come from their discards over the years. So it helps kind of tie together how the waterfront on Seattle developed as time went by.
First, we started off by doing side scan sonar of the entire lake. It showed a lot of shapes, it didn't show a lot of ships. But then when we started diving on the things that we did see in the sonar, we started realizing that most of them were boats or ships.
We have found a wonderful bunch of professional divers that had the same interest in the history of the lake.
I was not diving the wrecks of Lake Union before the survey began, just because diving in the lake is illegal to do. Frankly, I didn't even think there was anything of historical significance in the lake, so we never even thought about getting in here.
Knowing that people aren't technically allowed to dive in the lake, we found it kind of interesting, and that there'd probably be things to find and things to document.
We got a target just off to our left. Do we know of one?
And so that's what we did. We kind of visualized how the lake was 100 years ago and where things were, and then we're able to go down and basically find those items based on where things were located.
The steps we take when we come across a shipwreck, first we take a tape measurement of the wreck. So we'll do the full length of the wreck, and then we'll do the beam of the wreck. After that, we start looking at the key areas for a name.
If there's a name, it's pretty easy. We can identify it using that. We can then go through archives where they have photos, they have the history on the wrecks.
Once we know what the boat is, what type of thing it was, and even the specific vessel, then we can start to get at the history. We can start to learn about the people who were involved with it and really kind of bring the boat back to life.
Probably the most interesting wreck that we have done would be the Gypsy Queen.
The Gypsy Queen is a World War II minesweeper. We just happened to be swimming along one day, came upon a large shadow, and as we got closer, it was this huge vessel, fully intact.
To see this, this big giant minesweeper just sitting there underwater, just barely under the surface of the water. And, you could still go inside, you could still creep around in the rooms, go down the hallways. So to be able to see a World War II wreck fully intact and go inside of it, it's pretty amazing to be a part of that.
The J.E. Boyden has been a well-known ship out there, but nobody quite knew what it was. But now we find out the real history thanks to the efforts of everybody documenting this, and so that's what's interesting to know.
They used to pull in the tall ships into the Straits of Juan de Fuca, and the way this thing is made is just made like just a Goliath-style tug.
You know, the J.E. Boyden was an important tugboat. It's fairly early. It's got traces of the old style of boat building here.
And for me, just by knowing that the J.E. Boyden is out there, that changes my relationship with the lake, and it changes the way that I perceive it. It makes it much more lively. It makes it not so much a big empty space.
Some of the vessels just have great stories, and there's hundreds, if not thousands of those stories under the lake.
It's good to have the site records that scientists or historians can examine, but I think it's even better to be able to get at these stories about Seattle maritime heritage.
I think the story will go on for a long time, and it'll become a legend of the lake that everybody wants to tell everybody else about.
To me, it's like treasure hunting. I don't get the payoff of finding a bucket of gold, but I do get the payoff of finding an old wreck that no one's seen since the 1800s or the early 1900s. So that's what I see when I get underwater here in Lake Union. I see the history of where I live.